The show is about to begin.
Hang in there, it is! Smylie Kaufman for 61. Wow.
Featuring Smylie Kaufman.
If you're at a local IHOP at a PGA Tour event, you might see Hideki Matsuyama.
Put it up in the stance, strengthen the grip.
His co-host, Charlie Hulme.
We've now picked 5 of the last 8 winners on the PGA Tour.
Oh, just go in the hole. Please go in the hole. Please go in the hole. Please go in the hole. Yes, sir!
And the biggest names in golf.
That's a great question. Can I talk about it?
I don't think I'm ready.
How good does it get, SK?
Why not ask, Charlie?
Today, live from the Pinecrest Inn, it's the Smylie Show. So long, everybody.
This is the Smylie Show.
Welcome back to the Smylie Show, where Smylie, actually, I never really got to finish my vent on what was happening prior to the show, my equipment struggles. As you might, I don't think you really see it behind me, but effectively what happened was I had a bunch of ongoing HVAC issues. Thought I was going to have to replace the entire household thing when it had a great tech. Frank came out, did a little, tinkering, fixed it, right? But then I lost the HVAC, as was documented leading into Open Championship Week. I lost the unit right behind me. I was in here trying to record a show, and it was 91 degrees. That was
British heat wave.
Classic British heat wave in Durham, North Carolina. It happens all the time. Durham, also a city in England. So, a little bit of sister city parallels there.
How about a little Birmingham, England, huh? While we're at it.
Yeah. Wow. I think that's amazing. We should go over and do shows in Durham and Birmingham in the UK.
It's like National Treasure, the Resolute desk. The sister desk is in Birmingham, England. We got one here in Birmingham, Alabama.
That? Hey, who said we weren't like a what would that be? Like a geography
that.
pod? Geography pod, history pod, not a math pod, but might be one of those pods. So they came in here. And I was prepping for a term this week, so I got them all set up and I went to go play. They replaced the new fancy HVAC system back there, all good to go, right? The unfortunate part of that was I had this green shelving here. I had this custom built by a very skilled carpenter to fit back there for this backdrop on our YouTube channel on television. And guess what happened when I tried to put that back in with the new footprint of the HVAC system?
What happened?
Does not fit. There's about this much room of space that I don't know what I'm going to do, Smylie. I do not know what I'm going to do. I don't know if I can have the
you're
carpet
telling me
come
it used to
fix
look different than this?
No, you're seeing it like almost all the way pushed in, but not screwed in, not particularly sturdy. It's kind of like just sitting on the ledge there because there's like a large, hose of some sort that's keeping it from going all the way in. So
okay, all right.
Problems they abound, man.
That's a bummer.
What's new on your end? You played a little golf.
Week. Yeah,
that's right. You did get
this
sick.
week.
Yeah.
And I don't know if I just got it coming back from the Open, having the kids, whatever it was.
Classic.
It wasn't a bad.
Wave thing.
It was a mild one, and I actually asked ChatGPT whether I should play on Friday morning. I got the diagnosis of a mild flu of sorts, and the nurse said, hey, you probably shouldn't go and play golf, or you should just take it easy. But she doesn't know I hadn't played since the US Open. I'm like, hey, I appreciate your interest in me and making sure that I try to stay healthy and get back to healthy. But there's no way I'm not playing tomorrow morning. You can't keep me off that golf course. I needed to get out there to see where I was at, to see what I needed to try out. What new swing thought were we going to discover out here the next morning? We didn't know until we get out there and go try it. But pretty quickly after that first hole, I was like, you know what? I probably should have just stayed at home. Did a little double chip from over the green. It's like, I don't got my hands.
Just really. Now, do you think this was a result of the sickness or like a medication you took for the sickness?
No, I just Bermuda rough, and I just forgot how to chip. And I have been lazy about ordering a new 60 degree for a year and a half now, and need to get on that. Got to get some grooves. So I just don't have any trust.
We know some good people in Cleveland.
I know.
Make that happen. They're coming out with the RTZ2s this fall, like brand new metal, the classic Roger Cleveland 588 shape, all sorts of good stuff. So good reminder to us. I just didn't know. I
did hit it well. I did hit it well.
Really?
Yeah, I did hit it like
Love that for you.
real nice. I putted poorly on Saturday, chipped poorly on Friday. Like if I just got the ball up and down on Friday, made plenty enough birdies. But dude, my iron game on Saturday at times
Love
was
that.
like as good as it's been. And you know what my feel was?
What?
You know, I was like, I couldn't get enough of Sam Burns. So now I have Sam Burns and Scotty Scheffler morphed into my swing thoughts. And I do better when I like have a picture of somebody's swing in my head versus like trying to get to these technical positions. I'm almost like swinging to a visual of what I've seen from somebody. And I've watched Scotty play a ton of golf. I watched Sam play a ton of golf. And I kind of have like Sam's backswing going on. And then I'm trying Scotty's downswing. And what I mean by that, it's the stuff that Butch was talking about. Butch was like, you need to get that right ankle, or at least the left side of it working more this way versus like pushing down into my toe. So that's a Scotty move. That's what Scotty does. He pushes off the middle of his foot and is driving his pelvis into his left foot. And that's the break. And what I started to figure out was that I was more on top of the ball and I could actually feel that I could hold the face through and hit that fade. So like when I had a right to left breeze, which we had a ton of crosswinds this week on Friday and Saturday. And dude, I was holding these middle irons into right to left breezes, or even just like riding a left to right breeze with a fade with an iron. Like it was nothing. And you know, I've told you, I've struggled with a fade for the last 2 years. And here I come in my flu game, if you will. And I'm out here just hitting the Scotty fades out there. And now it wasn't perfect the whole week. I must admit it wasn't exactly like dialed, but for the shots that were good, it was really good.
I'll say it's good. Our show golf performance is trending right now because the feel that Butch gave you about standing up a little taller, I've combined that with something I saw on Instagram. It's like one of those videos of Tiger and Rory like talking. It's the one that keeps getting meme where it's like me and my 20 handicap buddy.
When the strong face.
Love the strong face. So I got a really good like grip and like swing plane matchup right now that I'm hitting it really good. I had a psycho scorecard situation in the tournament on Saturday, but I did make 4 birdies after like spending the entire week trying every putter I have in here and trying every different grip. We finally found something. So we're getting close. We're getting really close. I'm just happy that
I'm happy about the 4 birdies. Nice.
4 birdies were great. Birdied our hardest hole in the course 4, and then 11 into the wind, and then almost aced 14. Little 9-iron there, just like really.
Oh, that's the one that's just like kind of short right there before the par 5.
Par 3 we have. Yep.
Yeah.
See, look, this guy still got the Hope Valley photographic memory. Love that.
Yeah,
I'll tell you what.
It's kind of morphing between a golf course I played in Charlotte, so I kind of go back and forth between holes from there and Hope Valley, but for the most part, I remember most of y'all's scores.
All right, well, how's this for a segue? We're going to go from one Donald Ross golf course at Hope Valley to another one, Detroit Golf Club for the Rocket
it looked
Classic.
Amazing, by the way.
I'll tell you what.
Shame. It's like all right when we get
I know, right when it gets good, we're leaving. What are we doing here? I'll say this, you know, on the course architecture front. So Tyler Ray, who kind of did the redesign, went on 5 Clubs with Gary Williams last week to kind of prep us for the event. And he talked about, like when we've been on the show talking about Seminole and some of the changes they're doing to their green complexes, talked about the same sort of things where I love what's happening with all these Donald Ross courses where people are waking up and realize, hey, all those architects that came in the 60s and 70s and try to like, you know, punch up the design, ruined it. They made it all reductive, all turtleback greens. Like, is that what he did at Pinehurst number 2? Yes, it is. Is that what he did everywhere? Absolutely not. And so Tyler Ray comes in and does this, you know, careful historic restoration of these old school green shapes and adds all these really nice features. And of course, like you look at some of the like 361s out there this week, all went out in the morning wave with no wind. There was rain all week. It's soft. Like, yeah, those guys are going to shoot nothing. But I felt like coming down the stretch, bunch of guys in the mix today. It was windy. There were some kind of nervy shots where, you know, guy judged a wedge wrong or hit it on a tough spot. It created a ton of intrigues. Like, I'm just happy to see Donald Ross courses being taken back to true Donald Ross roots, not the reductive version of Donald Ross that many of us think about, false fronts and stuff like that.
Philly had issues elsewhere last year that were on full display in the playoff game against the Niners. They couldn't move the ball all game, and then they got in a 2-minute hurry-up drill, and they walked right down the field. Guys, Tom Brady would do Eagle games. Every single week he'd go, gosh, if they do some hurry-up. And then immediately they'd do some hurry-up, 2-minute warning, and they'd look like a completely different football team.
In-game live, only on SportsGrid.
You know, the dark days are ahead for the Warriors. And when Curry and Kerr and Draymond all leave, what are we going to be looking at that franchise that has been a mainstay of the NBA, you know, the face of the NBA and NBA playoffs for so long? Where are they going to be? So I see no issue with them bringing Draymond back. Why not? You have one last go at things with the trio that they still have there. But I see this as a very long season.
Game time decisions, only on SportsGrid.
Just can't win the big game. He can't get us in the big game. Well, we got to let him go now because we're tired. We'll keep the quarterback. So, you know what I've been saying? Okay, you kept the quarterback. Guess what? Mr. Lamar Jackson, it's on you now.
Hey,
it's on you.
Absolutely.
Right? It's on Lamar.
It is. It is totally on him now and the new coaching staff there.
Outspoken with Dan Cilio, only on SportsGrid.
I'd be looking to sell Louis Varland at this point just because his success has been great, but I'm also worried about how many more opportunities he's going to have given the dynamic of where the Blue Jays sit in the standings. You know, we've heard some rumors that they may be wanting to trade Jeff Hoffman, and it could open up a lot of opportunities for Louis Varland, but there's also nothing pushing the Blue Jays to continuously have out a great player when they're fighting for nothing when it's all said and done.
Pro Baseball Today, only on SportsGrid.
Golf ball and hit it again. It's a pretty open ballpark when it comes to that, but now that it seemed like they had a little bit more strategery when it came to the fairway bunkers. You kind of had to avoid those off of the tee, where it kind of felt like they were in play, but you could kind of always just eliminate one side and then just kind of bomb it, go from there. But it's you know, the touch that I really like is the fescue on top of the bunkers.
Yeah,
that to me adds. It's a visual thing too, right? When you're in the fairway and you have tall grass that is, you know, taking up a little bit into the front of the green, it sometimes can just make you feel a little bit more claustrophobic about a shot, right? Coming into the greens. Mm-hmm. And I just like that as a feature. I think Southern Hills also was another golf course that reminded me of that. They had that feature. So really like that. I thought the changes of the course were cool. You kind of said it too. The green complex is super unique in some of them, but also lengthened. Actually, it wasn't lengthened. They just made they may have lengthened it, but they two par fives and par fours, and you know that back to back of 6-7. You know, 6 was always a pretty good healthy par 4, and then you go play 7, which now is a par 4. Those are two pretty dang good test right there. And then 17 was always like the most boring par 5 of all time. Now it was a par 5 or par 4 today where guys are hitting driver 7 iron. And I thought the first hole may have been the worst hole on the PGA Tour before they've renovated it. Now there's like a cross bunker that kind of comes out where guys are having to avoid that off the tee. But before, man, it was the easiest hole of all time. It was a driver that a golf ball couldn't end up anywhere other than just like whatever rough or fairway, and you had a 60-yard shot into the green. It was like, what? This is the easiest hole of all time to start. And so you always saw guys making 2 there throughout the week, and now it's a much better hard par 4.
It's so
short,
interesting.
But better.
The point you make too about like the grasses and the visual nature of, you know, a course restoration, taking it back to its original roots, where I feel like some of the things that I find most intriguing on Ross courses, and a lot of this we've kind of dug into as we prepare for our own, you know, restoration next year, is that there are, of course, bunkers like the one you just mentioned, the cross bunker at 1, that PGA Tour pros actually have to think about and get a number on and figure out how they're going to avoid it, or you know, really kind of push it up on either side, or play it short of that, things like that. But there are also so much of the bunkering that Ross did was just creating visual discomfort off of tees and kind of trying to force you, not dissimilar to a lot of stuff that Alistair McKenzie did, but just like kind of forcing you into these uncomfortable feelings on the tee to really make it a more challenging shot, even if some of those bunkers or hazards didn't really come into play. And then I thought that, for a lot of courses that did kind of get botched in their restoration or renovation efforts, you lost so much of the intrigue of the approach shot because it boils down to short bad, center of the green good, long bad. Whereas instead, now you look at some of the hole locations at Detroit Golf Club today, or the work that Gil Hanse did down at Seminole, and it's like they have like 4 or 5 different really interesting hole locations. And you really standing over that approach shot thinking about, okay, the wind's doing this, but like if I end up on the wrong side of this thing, I'll be lucky to 2-putt, like might as well mark down a 3-putt. I think that is very, very cool. And it is cool to, it's interesting. Later in the show, we're going to talk about the future of the PGA Tour and the destinations they're trying to go to. And, we're losing this event, at a classic Donald Ross course. We lost Sony. We're not going to see that anymore. Seth Rayner course. It kind of bums me out that you're losing these classics that have these really old school architectural feel. There's less and less on the PGA Tour these days.
It kind of just made me start thinking about just golf courses in general, thinking about courses like the one we go in Houston, Memorial Park.
Yep.
Doesn't have hardly any bunkers out there. They pretty much have the whole design catered around it being a second shot golf course with the movement around the greens and the distance in which you're going to be playing into the greens, which is fairly long for the most part. And then you go to the other side of the coin of what we were just talking about with the Donna Ross course that, you're standing on a tee and the fairway may be 40 yards wide, but you're sitting on the tee and you're like, there might be like 7 yards of fairway that I feel like I'm looking at here.
Yes.
And there's not a wrong answer of which one is right, because I've played, sometimes on golf courses, the best hole on the course is the hole that doesn't have a fairway bunker or a bunker on the hole itself. I grew up on a course where Jack Nicklaus's best hole was our 4th hole and there wasn't a bunker on the hole. And now it was tree line and we had a tornado roll through. And so things have changed out at that hole, but it just made me think about, what I prefer in a golf hole. There's, especially in all these restorations and new designs that we're seeing and just what architects tend to prefer. And I'm not saying that, again, that there is a right or wrong answer, but I do like a mix of both. I hate feeling uncomfortable on the tee where I feel like I'm being squeezed, but I also love when architects are able to just do it with angles, right? If you're able to, make you challenge up one side of the fairway to give yourself a better angle into a green that's more shallow or more diagonal versus more that has a run-up area. That's like another cool aspect of what I like in golf architecture too. It's like a good mix of both. I don't like to feel squeezed on every hole, but if you're able to like mix in a little bit of both, that's where I'm like, yeah, give me some of that.
Oh, I think for a lot of people, the test boils most simply down to like, if I leave this golf course, how many holes can I remember? That kind of makes the course, how long is it going to stick in my brain? Did I like it? Did I not like it? And so I always feel like playing courses where there is your wheels are turning a lot over every shot. So we're talking about bunkers placement off of tees where you're really like, oh, like I know the angle of the hole. I should go over there, but that looks really
right.
You need a yardage book too, but I think I just in general I make this much more simplified, than it really is. But in general, it's like if I'm thinking a lot before every shot, I'm really trying to feel like I can't just hit driver anywhere, and then like this is kind of what you want to do on the green, but you're pretty safe everywhere. Like that course is going to exit my mind pretty quickly. Whereas like the fact that I'm thinking about all these shots and the way I want to hit them, you leave, you're like, that course is seared into my memory just because I went through the process on each hole in such great depth and detail. So yeah, I feel
like when I leave a golf course, and it's so often you hear somebody say, if I just had one more round at this place, I'd be able to figure it out.
Yeah.
I oftentimes think that when I say that about a place, like half the time I mean it, half the time I don't. The other half I'm thinking like, I don't think really it was that great of a golf course. golf course and you can't get around it, and that's fine. You get used to it the next time you play. But places that have just those humps and bumps in different places now, and I'm not talking about links golf, I'm talking about just US golf. Those are the places I tend to be like, not really in on what just happened on, like 4 or 5 shots out there. You know what I mean?
I totally know what you mean, because I think there's a difference there you have to split in your head between, do I need to see this place again because there was so much subtlety that I didn't fully appreciate? We're like, and this is the brilliance of architecture. It's like, if I hit a tee shot on a hole where you've disguised the trouble or the best approach angle, but I still am finding the ball, I'm just up there, I'm like, oh, got it. Like, this is the wrong angle. Like, I'm still in play, I can still make it, versus you get up there and you're like, oh, wow, this fairway slopes at this insane aggressive angle, and I'm in the water hazard now. And I thought
Exactly.
I had I thought I was going to flip a wedge in. Now I'm dropping and hitting 3. Like, the second category is, I need to see this place again, because there were so many silly design quirks that it just wasn't fair the first time. And I could shoot a course, I could shoot a good score, but I'd be going out there taking short irons off some tee, just doing stuff that's not really conducive to the true test of golf. I think that's the split.
Okay, all right. I'm gonna give my answer here, and I'm gonna let you think of yours. But what is your least favorite design? Not least favorite design, but least favorite design feature, if you will.
Okay.
And so what I mean by that, my answer is, I can't stand a creek or patch of rough that runs across the fairway and separates a fairway within 2. I think it's the one that annoys me the most, where I'm having to shoot and I'm like, okay, it's a 300 cover over this fairway, or at least over this creek to get into this fairway. I either have to lay up short or I've got to cover this. I can't stand it. It's my least favorite design feature.
It's so funny you say this, because we keep going back to Hope Valley, but Hope Valley used to have a creek cut across on the 11th hole. And Ben Hogan came and played there for some. So there was like a Durham Open there for a while. Like this is where Byron Nelson won his 4th, 11th events in a row at the Durham Open at Hope Valley. So Hogan was out there and said, "This is my favorite hole out here." And he came back a couple years later and they'd taken the creek out. And he's like, "You guys just ruined the best hole on your golf course. Like, I'm never playing here again." so they're bringing back that creek when they do the restoration next year. But I think that's a good shout.
I don't know.
I think it's hard for me to place, a specific like gimmicky design feature. I do. There have been some courses I've gone to. I think mine boils down to green complexes, where there is a way to use slope and speed correctly to where you can make it difficult, but you give me an option as to like both what I'm trying to do on an approach shot, where it's like, okay, if I hit it here, even if it looks like that's safe, if I'm trying to go to pin, I'm actually going to end up in a bad spot. But if you kind of use this slope over here, there's a backstop behind it, like I can still get to that pin. Where there's some greens where it's like, this is like putt-putt. Like, go ahead and just put a clown's mouth out here. Like, what are we doing? And I know that as new architects, especially, you're trying to create a design or a hole that stands out. Everyone remembers the big Himalayas hole putting green. I think it's cartoonish and stupid.
Me and you both, we're on the same page. I don't like double breaking greens. Now I can deal with it if it's, a couple times that around, and if it's, much more subtle in its usage. But my other one that has to deal with slope. So if that was 1A with a cross bunker's fine, but really a cross creek is what I'm kind of referring to. My 1B would be tee boxes that are designed to have slope in them. So if it's not a flat tee box, like I can understand it just being like, a half a degree off here or there one way. Like, that's not going to be the end of the world. But when you literally feel like you're on an upslope, or the ball's above your feet or below your feet, and even throwing that in there, I see it all the time in golf courses where they will purposely aim the tee box away from where they want you to aim it. It's like, let's just put it straight, Yeah. Just put it straight.
So you're talking about aiming in addition to elevation? So
I would say like that's pretty like
thinking
far
about the same player answer.
I pick up on those
year.
things. I pick up on those things, but a lot of people don't. And so they end up aiming it where the tee box is aiming them, and they end up hitting it, right where the tee box wanted them to go. And that's something I'll notice, but a lot of people don't. But the slope thing is a bit frustrating at times for me. Now, you could deal with it. These are like very ticky-tack things, but we're talking about design features, which is a very ticky-tack annoying thing to talk about anyways.
Well, and I agree, because I feel like if you're aiming a tee box, like you should aim the tee box for the straightest and most conservative line. Like basically you should say to yourself, if you're an architect, if I'm playing for like the 250 to 260 yard hitter off the tee, if I was telling them hit a straight shot safe, this is where I'd aim this thing. Because then I think what it does is, if you're trying to cut the corner or you're trying to kind of do something, then you have to take it upon yourself to change your aim in a way that feels uncomfortable. And that's part of what you're doing. Instead of going up there and you're like, wait.
Class is in session. Today, let's talk about the teaser. A teaser is a multi-leg bet where you shift the point spread in your favor. You get better numbers, but every selection has to win. It doesn't matter what you bet if you don't have the insights. Tune into SportsGrid and get ahead of the class.
The dark days are ahead for the Warriors. And when Curry and Kerr and Draymond all leave, what are we going to be looking at that franchise that has been a mainstay of the NBA, the face of the NBA and NBA playoffs for so long? Where are they going to be? So I see no issue with them bringing Draymond back. Why not? You have one last go at things with the trio that they still have there. But I see this as a very long season.
Game time decisions only on SportsGrid.
Philly had issues elsewhere last year that were on full display in the playoff game against the Niners. They couldn't move the ball all game, and then they got in a 2-minute hurry-up drill, and they walked right down the field. Guys, Tom Brady would do Eagle games. Every single week he'd go, gosh, if they do some hurry-up. And then immediately they'd do some hurry-up, 2-minute warning, and they'd look like a completely different football team.
In-game live, only on SportsGrid.
They come in a lot more better prepared to play than, say, we did, having to learn some of the things that we learned coming into the NFL that we weren't learning in college. A lot of these kids are getting quarterback coaches, as far back as junior high school and all the way through high school into college. So I think the position is a lot more stronger than it's ever been.
Outspoken with Dan Cilio, only on SportsGrid.
Steven, how excited were you to see that golf ball going on the 18th hole? It was the longest putt he made the entire week, 25.8 inches. I mean, come on, how good was that?
Yeah, no, it was pretty awesome. I was actually at the Wyndham Championship working with Aaron Wise today, and just nervously kind of checking my phone. And just got into my hotel room, checked in, turned on the TV, and right as I turned it on, he made the putt. So it was awesome. Yeah,
so you never had to sweat it out. Like, you weren't even looking at your phone while you're working with Aaron. You're nothing but all business at the Wyndham Championship, getting the next guys ready.
I broke a lot of traffic laws coming home, looking at my PGA Tour app, live updating on the way home.
Rightfully so, man. Well, first off, congratulations. That's heck of an achievement. I mean, this kid, it's, we got a lot of young winners right now on the PGA Tour. Everybody was talking about Jackson Coyven coming into this week. Michael Thorbjornsen was a player who we documented coming into this season. He's another PGA Tour U guy. Tons of talent coming out of Stanford. He's had plenty of success on the PGA Tour. Coming into the year, Steven, I said, if this guy can just round out his game around the greens, really the sky's the limit for Michael. Is that, when he steps in, a guy like that steps in your office, that's the exact type of player you want to come in, because he's going to be so solid from tee to green.
Oh yeah, I mean, I was so excited when I first found out that I was going to have a chance to work with him. Going back to the Travelers 2 years ago when he got his PGA Tour U card, they gave him an invite into that elevated event, and meeting up with him there for the first time, and then all the way through to today to see obviously him win and just what it meant to him and, his family and, his dad's been heavily involved for such a long time. It's really cool to be able to watch that happen.
Well, he's got a lot of unique stuff about his action, right? Like his golf swing it's very, very good. He hits it very far, hits it straight, hits a lot of greens, but he's got a 10-finger grip. And I know we're not here to talk about his full swing, but he does it kind of in his own way, which I think when a student like that shows up into your office, that's kind of nice that you know that he's got some creativity and at least in the way he plays the game.
Oh, for sure. For sure. I mean, with the amount of players that I coach, I mean, you see me out there week to week. It's tough to get on the golf course to see them live in action. And, I'd worked with them for a while. And eventually at the PGA Championship at Quail Hollow, I got out to see him. And the first shot I didn't even see him hit was on 17 on the par 3. And he was playing with another really top young player who everyone would know, but the other guy hits first. I was grabbing a water out of the cooler, and Michael hit, and it was the third person that's ever made me do this. I literally turned around immediately, the sound off the club. It was just different. And as a putting guy like you, I don't get that excited about full game stuff, but it was one of those you immediately turned around. I was like, what was that? That was not normal, so he's got just an immense amount of talent, and it's so good to see him finally get it over the line.
All right, so what's in Michael's DNA when it comes to just his overall short game? Like when he shows up, in your office or the first time into your studio, what were his beliefs in putting, and what did you see in his just overall DNA? And did any of it have any translation between how he swung the golf club or how he set up to the golf ball, and kind of what was in his putting stroke?
Yeah, I mean, you've been to my studio, Smylie. You've sort of seen how I do things, and you sort of seen behind the curtain a little bit. But because he's got so much natural talent, I think he was kind of winging it a lot with his putting, as far as just I'll try this or I'll try that. And when I first met him, he was cross-handed, and that was something that it was part of his DNA by that point. Obviously, he was the best player at Stanford, won PGA Tour U, but it wasn't a case of there was any reason why he did things. There was no real baseline around A, how he practiced, or B, what he was kind of working on from a week to week kind of point of view. So very raw, but obviously super talented. So the main things that we really tried to do were just to instill good baselines, and give him some drills that he could work off statistically with strokes gained in mind and stuff like that. And the one thing I will say to his credit, the first probably couple of months, it was a little learning curve for both of us, but he really showed an ability to become a great short putter. And with as good as he hits the golf ball, essentially the big thing was to try and be a little bit more consistent with his speed. And then on top of that, just trying to capitalize a little bit more on some of these mid-range birdie efforts that you need to win tournaments, because you obviously got to make a lot of birdies out there now.
Now, when you look at a guy like Michael, Michael Thorbjornsen is a player who's led the greens and regulation stat last year on the PGA Tour. This year, he's up there as well. When you think about how you coach a player like Michael, who's maybe a little bit similar to, a Scotty Scheffler, right? This is a guy who's going to be in a lot of fairways, a lot of greens, and necessarily when Michael goes and looks at his putting statistics, he may get frustrated being like, you know what? I feel like I'm a better putter than 115th in the strokes game data, but is it working against him a little bit that he's got so many more looks of outside 20 feet, give or take, because he hits so many greens in regulation? Is that tough on you as a coach sometimes?
I think, yes and no. We obviously were excited to kind of scrub the stats and go into this season pretty fresh and sort of get we'd done a good body of work over the winter. and sort of see where can we get to stats wise. And then, you know, he came off a great week in Phoenix, went to Pebble, was pretty tired. And he just had a really, really bad week on the greens in Pebble.
Hey, not the first guy. Not the first guy.
He's not the first guy at all.
I never putt those greens well.
To the point that he basically ruined his season's stats with just like one like crazy bad week. So that was a little bit unfortunate for his stats. And, you know, we've talked about it, like he's putted much better than his stats would suggest that he's putted, based on the fact that, you know, he then followed it up with another bad week at the PGA at up there in Philadelphia at Aronimink,
which was another tough week. Guys were like that statistically weren't making as many putts inside of 10 feet. So there's 2 weeks that you can kind of just throw out the trash as, you know, unusual weeks that these guys don't typically face. Not giving an excuse, but it's also something that was well documented that week particular.
Exactly. So he, you know, I mean, I think for good players, you always know when you're putting good and when you're putting bad, regardless of what the stats say. And he's been putting good for a long time. And, you know, you just have these anomalies that kind of statistically, you know, kind of blot your scorecard a little bit. But, you know, the short putting has been phenomenal. He's really done well there. And the speed, we've done a lot of work on trying to negate like the 3 putts. And then, you know, just like you said, because he gives himself so many looks, or, you know, day in, day out, it's hard to convert them from that distance, especially when you're dealing with so much slope from 20 feet all the time, you know?
No, that makes total sense. And I can understand why you guys would target speed, because it's not easy percentage wise to make putts outside of 10 feet, give or take. Also, commend you guys. Looked at the stats, the 4 to 8 feet range, much improved in 2026. So to your point, has made drastic improvements there. So Charlie, let's bring those videos up. Before we got on here, me, you, and Steven are talking, and I say you, I'm referring to Charlie as we're looking at this video. Michael, he said before or after this week in particular, there was a bit of a come to Jesus moment between Michael and Steven because of what you saw in his putting this week in particular.
want to try this, and he was going to stand, super open. And I brought this little thing from my studio just up the street, where I was just trying to get him to move the putter pretty clean online. But obviously his baseline there, you can see with his lower body's just so wide open to the left. And then
I see that, man.
when we looked at his face on, it was causing him problems as well with where his ball position was relative to his feet. So because he turned his feet and his whole lower body so far to the left, effectively his ball position relative to his feet had gotten way back and in.
Oh, it's gotten back. Wow.
Yeah.
Wow, look at that. I can see that.
So this was at Palm Beach at the Cognizant. And
He doesn't look happy with that putt either. He's already mad on the putting green. That's when you know he's a guy that's frustrated with his game at the time.
Yeah, so I mean, we come off this week, and it wasn't a brilliant week on the greens. Obviously, Pebble, he'd struggled, and JJ, his caddy, and myself, we've had a pretty long relationship now. We both had worked together with Colin Morikawa.
Yeah.
And I feel like I've had a lot of support and confidence from JJ over the years. And when we got to Bay Hill then the following week, he was in an elevated event, but I was like, look, dude, do you want to look like the best putter in the world, first of all? Because you don't look like a good putter. And second of all, I think there just needs to be some changes that are really going to help you long term. And one of the things he really struggled with when he stood like this was he would hit it off the heel a lot.
Would he
draws the
golf?
Yeah, big time. So he draws the golf ball. So a lot of the draw components in his golf swing, the path was working super end out. The ball's back in a stance, like kind of things you'd want to see for a draw.
Yeah.
So the ball kind of starting right off his baseline from his feet. So these were the things that I just didn't like seeing from him. And we got a chance to go into my putting studio as well and baseline some numbers. So we just went back to like real basics. And I said to him, I was like, look, if you were going to teach a 5-year-old how to putt, how would you explain it to them? And he was like, well, if they were standing on train tracks and the ball and the putter was on one train track and my feet were on the other train track, and then you just basically move your shoulders and the putter goes back and through and the ball starts down that line. So you can see here we worked on getting the shaft lined up with that shaft on the ground, with that stick on the ground.
The ball position looks better too. Yeah,
way more forward. Yeah, he was able to stay in the putt a lot easier. He wasn't sort of backing up and out of it because of his ball position being so far back as well. And the first thing he said after we took these two videos was like, oh, I actually look like a good putter in these videos.
Hey, that was something you were trying to get him to at least visually look like that he knew what he was doing. And I could see it here, man. Like when you have an open stance and the ball back, there's not a whole lot of good that can come from that. You might have one hot putting round, but over the course of a season, putting on different grasses, different speeds, having to adjust with wind day in and day out, you got no chance to be a good putter out there. At least one of the better putters on the PGA Tour get to the level that he wants to get to.
Yeah. And obviously you can see it from this angle massively where, his knees, his feet, everything have lined up way better. He's hitting it way more out of the center of the putter. And, it actually cleaned up a lot of his speed as well because he started hitting the ball way more out of the center of the face. And weirdly, these were changes that we made the week of Phoenix when he almost won. And then, with Pebble being the week after, it had worked for 1 week. Then obviously it went bad. And then by Cognizant, he was like, I'm just going to try something.
Yeah.
And this was sort of JJ, really being a massive help as a caddy, getting into it with him and saying, look, this worked. Like, don't give up on it so quickly. let's get back to this. And, the difference is obviously pretty apparent from the eye,
No, it looks really good here, and it's looked really nice throughout the entire season that I've had opportunities to watch him. And Charlie's going to come in here and kind of finish up this interview. But before we get there, I just have to ask you. I kind of briefly touched on it, just about what his ceiling might be. And I go and look at his statistics and see that he's had 8 top 5s. And he's only 24 years old. He's a PGA Tour U guy coming out, gets his card that way. He's an elite driver, hits a bunch of greens. His short game's rapidly improving. What is the ceiling for this guy, Michael?
It's as high as he wants it to be. It's one of those kids you look at and you just think, wow, like you can do anything you want. We had a funny situation the last couple of years where he got into Philly Cricket Club last year, and I was like, I'll see you at Quill Hall next week, and he was like, sure, okay, and he kept his end of the bargain. And this year at the Scottish Open, he wasn't in the Open. I was like, I'll see you at Birkdale next week. And he was like, oh, yeah, okay, sure. And I was like, no. This is a deal. We made the deal last year. I'll see you at the Open next week. And then, he finished second and got down to the Open, or the third, whatever it was. And when the pressure's been on, he's really he's delivered. And, I feel like getting this win is really just going to sort of break that glass ceiling for him and let him just do whatever he wants from here.
It was a team win, Charlie. I mean, how about it? We should have had some Guinness on here, right?
We talked to Shane Lowry about the best Guinness in the world very recently, but this is a very full circle moment for this show and for Stephen Sweeney, because if you think back to the last piece of content featuring Stephen Sweeney that we distributed on our YouTube channel, a fantastic putting lesson that everyone should go and check out. Did some work with Smylie, did some work with the 5-year-old that Michael Thorbjornsen was talking to, me, in the second half of that video. But there's so much good in there. And as we were walking into that studio to film that project, who was in there for, I guess, one of the first times ever, Stephen? Michael Thorbjornsen. So here we are.
I'd be looking to sell Louis Varland at this point, just because his success has been great, but I'm also worried about how many more opportunities he's going to have given the dynamic of where the Blue Jays sit in the standings. We've heard some rumors that they may be wanting to trade Jeff Hoffman, and it could open up a lot of opportunities for Louis Varland, but there's also nothing pushing the Blue Jays to continuously have out a great player when they're fighting for nothing when it's all said and done.
Pro Baseball Today, only on SportsGrid.
Class is in session. Today, let's talk about the teaser. A teaser is a multi-leg bet where you shift the point spread in your favor. You get better numbers, but every selection has to win. It doesn't matter what you bet if you don't have the insights. Tune into SportsGrid and get ahead of the class.
The dark days are ahead for the Warriors. And when Curry and Kerr and Draymond all leave, what are we going to be looking at that franchise that has been a mainstay of the NBA, the face of the NBA and NBA playoffs for so long? Where are they going to be? So I see no issue with them bringing Draymond back. Why not? You have one last go at things with the trio that they still have there. But I see this as a very long season.
Game time decisions, only on SportsGrid.
Philly had issues elsewhere last year that were on full display in the playoff game against the Niners. They couldn't move the ball all game, and then they got in a 2-minute hurry-up drill, and they walked right down the field. Guys, Tom Brady would do Eagle games. Every single week he'd go, gosh, if they do some hurry-up. And then immediately they'd do some hurry-up, 2-minute warning, and they'd look like a completely different football team.
In-game live, only on SportsGrid.
No, like I said, I didn't hit any shots or give any yardages. So congrats to the boys, and just I'm so stoked for what's to come for Michael. You know.
I tell you what, I bet he feels the exact same way for you watching you be a YouTube golfer now. One day y'all are gonna get to celebrate a team win with your team getting a dub. So hey, it goes both ways, Steven.
Yeah, put in a note for us. See if we can have Thor come on and break down your highlights on social. From
oh my God, we do. Nobody needs to see that. No one needs to see that whatsoever.
All right, well, congrats, Steven, and see you in Greensboro.
All right, we'll see you there.
Talk soon.
See you,
Thanks,
Steven.
guys.
Thanks, buddy.
Bye-bye.
Well, here's what I'll tell you is like, first of all, this is when we started the year, and we do this. It's a great show tradition we develop where we have on James Nitties. He gives us all the Corn Ferry Tour grads he likes. Obviously, Thor was not a Corn Ferry Tour grad, but I'm saying more so in the process of us kind of setting up the year. Like, we're trying to figure out guys we liked the year before. We've been kind of trending, see about the new guys, and then you put together your list of like 9 guys you liked, and Thor was on this list. And he obviously had a close call at the Phoenix Open. I really think the coolest part of this episode for all who are watching or listening is scroll ahead to, I don't know if you're watching the full context of this on Golf Channel or we've broken this up into segments on YouTube, but the conversation we just recorded with Stephen Sweeney, Michael Thorbjornsen's putting coach. I think it's a really, really cool one about the way obviously guy stripes the ball, hits it a mile, but fine-tuning that piece of it, you saw it with the 26-footer he made on 18 today to put this thing on ice. So we'll unpack that a little further. But I think, Smylie, just your overall thoughts on Thor's maybe career path to this point, his first PGA Tour win. And honestly, one of the things I thought about in the immediate aftermath of this win is, remember, maybe it was last week, the week before, we're talking about this part of the schedule, the post-Open Championship part of the schedule. The John Deere's, the Rockets, the 3Ms, where this is where, a couple years ago, Davis Thompson and Thorbjornsen and a number of others are doing down the stretch. Like, this is a cool time of the year to have storylines like this. You have back-to-back winners on the PGA Tour that both came from PGA Tour U, and I hope we don't lose that when we have a stratified tour in 2028.
Man, Michael plays good this time of the year. He's got that John Deere, plays good at the Scottish Open this year, won the Western Am back in 2022, I think it was. So we're some guys play well at certain times of the year. And here Michael Thorbjornsen is winning win on the PGA Tour on a golf course that played hard today on Sunday. And it was not necessarily quite as of a cupcake as it was early in the week. Thorbjornsen had his best round of the week on Sunday, the lowest round of the day, shooting a 63, no bogeys. Of course, kind of sealing it off with that 25-footer, which was the longest putt he made the entire week. He actually had only made 12 putts outside of 25 feet the entire year. And so just for him to make a putt from that length to seal it, especially with the situation at the time, if Michael goes in 3 putts, Xander Schauffele had a chance to make his putt to tie him. And Xander, of course, made his putt. So it was, for a second there, like there was a chance for a 2-shot swing if Michael hit a poor putt. But really going into that back 9, it felt like it was anybody's ball game. There was a lot of guys that had a chance. Davis Riley was the guy who was out in front today. Michael Brennan was a player that seemed to felt like it was going to be a guy that was going to have a good Sunday. Didn't have his best day. But, Michael was rock solid, man. He hit 17 greens on a gusty day. It's wet outside. When you have, I always found those to be the most challenging days almost when it's soft and it's gusty winds from the north that are inconsistent. Those are the most challenging days because of the strength of the wind could change dramatically, especially when you get that north heavier air and the ball just feels like on crosswind, doesn't want to stay on line. Saw it a couple different times, especially on the longer par 4s today. But Michael handled it beautifully, only hitting 17 greens, only missing 9 greens on the week. And Charlie, that's kind of been his bread and butter, man, is that he's unorthodox as it is, being a 10-finger guy, he's an elite ball striker.
Yeah, you talked to Steven about his sort of unique background, the creativity, and the way he's gone about forming his game, that 10-finger grip on full shots, putting grip, setup, all those sorts of things. So for a deeper dive on that, we'll let that live later in the show. You mentioned Xander Schauffele, his best finish of the year to date. Nice to see him trending after this sort of, I don't want to call it like a long bounce back, but, really, we think back to his 2024 year where he wins 2 majors and then he's injured to begin 2025. It's been maybe some near misses for him, and maybe not the best version of Xander Schauffele's game, at least not living up to that 2024 standard.
We'll see you next week on the Golf Channel. This has been The Smylie Show.
I listen to this podcast. It's really cool. And
all of our lovely fans and subscribers, but make sure you like and subscribe.
It's cool to see what you guys are doing. I know golf fans appreciate it, but we do too, so please keep it up.
For all the good people at YouTube, like and subscribe.
You guys have some good takes, so I'm happy to come on and shoot the